out the window, trying to hold on to didn't even know I wasted it all just to watch you go. I kept everything inside, and even though I tried, it all fell apart. What it meant to be will eventually be a memory of a time when I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. One thing, I don't know why, it doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind, I designed this rhyme to remind myself how I tried so hard. In spite of the way you were mocking me, acting like I was part of your property, remembering all the times you fought with me, I'm surprised it got so. Things aren't the way they were before. You wouldn't even recognize me anymore. Not that you knew me back then, but it all comes back to me in the end. You kept everything inside, and even though I tried, it all fell apart. What it meant to me will eventually be a memory of a time when I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. I put my trust in you, pushed as far as I can go. For all this, there's only one thing you should know. I've put my trust in you, pushed as far as I can go. For all this, there's only one thing you should know. I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. I had to fall to lose it all, but in the end, it doesn't even matter.
Welcome to the Missouri Freedom Initiative. Here we are in February 1st, 2025. Hey, gang, I wanted to talk a little bit about the U.S. debt clock here for a moment here. We're at $36,426 billion of national debt. But I often show it an exploded view of it, which doesn't give you the whole view of what's really going on, because actually that's the good news. The good news is that the national debt is $36 trillion. The debt per taxpayer is $323,000. But there's also some bad news. We're going to get to the Doge clock in a second here, because that's some of the good news. Here's some of the really bad news. Social Security liability, $28 trillion. Medicare liability, $43 trillion. U.S. unfunded liabilities as a grand total, $226 trillion, with a total liability of $665,000 per citizen. That's not per taxpayer. That's per person. So enjoy all this lavish debt, basically we have here in the United States. But the Doge clock has been added. I'm going to circle it here so you guys see it, just in case, because it is, kind of a new thing here. But it's the orangish, yellowish looking item right here in the U.S. debt clock. And the Doge clock is showing us $46 billion. Since Trump took office, they have carved $46 billion off the U.S. budget. That's a pretty good start. I mean, we're at a week and a half now, right? So almost 2 weeks. And $46 billion. Now, earlier today, someone told me that it was only in the millions, the Doge clock. And I told that person that if that's true, Elon needs to be fired, because it's very, very easy to cut the waste out of the U.S. budget. But at any rate, just wanted to show you guys that. And let's get to our crew here. Tonight we have, of course, we have Sam on the phone with us. Sam basically comes through on my audio board through my phone. So, but also with us, we have Cindy Stratton. We have Caleb, also known as Liberty Revolutionary. And then we have Shane coming to us from Wisconsin. And we have quite a few viewers tonight, particularly on Twitter. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And we're going to talk about several things, but I thought I'd just give you the status of where our bills are right now. And let's see, where is that? Here we go. This is right on the Missouri Freedom Initiative website because we have an awesome webmaster named Tom. But the status of bills we're supporting right now. SB 25 is assigned to insurance and banking, and unfortunately it's on hold in there right now. There's no hearings assigned. HB 433, that is second read, that has not been assigned to a committee yet. Its number has not come up, but it should in about 2 weeks. So, and then the same is true with the rest of our bills, HB 658, HB 561, and then also we have a placeholder here for SEPA. But we're currently waiting for bills that would be, Bill Hardwick's version of SEPA. We want to see that real close and personal, compare the two, and get behind the best bill. So we're waiting on that one. So that's the status of our bills right now. Now, as far as co-sponsors, if you guys get the email newsletter, please continue calling, asking for co-sponsorships. I'm going to be doing more of that this week. On the House side, I'm going to concentrate on. I've already hit the Senate side and the committee. So that's already done. All of them got an email and a voicemail from me. So I didn't talk to any senator direct, but I did talk to some LAs or chief of staff, and then, of course, did the email as well. So I encourage everyone to do that with everyone in the committee that SB 25 is in, insurance and banking. If you guys get our newsletter, you'll have all the pertinent information from last week. If you didn't get the newsletter, it's right on our website. Remember now, every email that I send out, because we do have problems once in a while with the emails being blocked, oddly enough, so you can go right to our website and go to the blog and read all of our newsletters in order. So Tom posts them there for everyone to see in case they've not been able to get an email, or in case they just joined us but they want to see more emails from the past, because that's pretty much what we're up to. And so at any rate, so just keep that in mind. And that's kind of the status of the bills. Okay, with that out of the way, and tonight we're not going to do a really live long stream. We're going to keep it to an hour, so about 8:30 we're going to sign off. But I thought we would talk about some of the things that we run into from time to time. And first of all, say hello to everyone. Everyone, thank you for joining us. I see Gary Ride is with us. Google Has No Credibility is with us. Nice to have you back. Let's see, Mike from Maine, or MM Neo, is also with us. Very French sounding. We have John Sal with us. Let's see, on the Rumble side, Frank Heiss, hello there. And let's see, and anyone in Odysee. And people tend not to chime in, at least not very often on the Twitter side, but that seems to be where we get most of our audience from. So just thank you all for joining us. And I thought that I would cover, and we can talk about this as a group, because we all deal with this. And this is, the kind of guff that we get from people that have an opposing point of view for freedom. There's always an excuse, a reason why it's okay to take away someone's freedoms. And I put one in the newsletter today, in the short, tiny newsletter I sent out. But I'd like to talk about another one, and that's the right to privacy. I used to have a neighbor lived next door to me, where I live now. He and his family moved just a little bit further south to get away from the high property taxes that they voted in, because their son was done with school. And so they wanted lower property taxes. So they moved about 2 miles south into Stone County. And one of the things that it always just surprised me was he had absolutely no right with he had no problem with the government taking away people's right to privacy. And he says, if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to worry about. And so that's one of those things that I found, and he happened to be on the left-hand side of the political spectrum, very left side of the political spectrum, actually. But it seems like it just is my experience. I'd like to ask all of you tonight if it's also your experience that when you, and by the way, I get along with these people. It's not like we're in knockout, drag down fist fights, when I'm talking, with people that are on the left side. And in fact, I'm accused of being a Republican all the time, and nothing could be further from the truth. I'm not a Republican either. But I am on the conservative side of things. I'm a constitutional conservative. And that does not define the Republican Party, unfortunately. They have left that a long time ago. So basically, with people making excuses to take away other people's rights, and let's be clear about this, gang, they're okay with not only taking away the rights of people that live in the here and now, but also for taking away the rights and the power of people in the future for their own personal comfort today. They're very comfortable with that. They're okay with that. And so I think that's something interesting that doesn't normally get talked about. The last time we actually covered this topic was back in the Truth, Money, and Freedom days. And we did do, I don't think it was a live stream. I think it was a Discord group, discussion on this. And I think it's very, 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 very important for everyone to consider whether, and let's start with this. The very first responsibility of an elected official. Guys, we try to trick people when they're running for office because they usually get the answer wrong. What is the first most important role as an elected official at any capacity where you swear an oath? Basically to the Constitution of the United States, the Missouri Constitution. Your very first duty is to protect the God-given rights of the citizens that you represent. That is your first responsibility. And so many fail miserably right out the gate. And so that's what we're going to try and talk a little bit about tonight. We're going to segue into how to talk to politicians when you know for a fact they're lying to you. You know for a fact that they're terrible, in their legislation. They're terrible in their vote history. How do you deal with them? Because they'll just lie to your face when you go to their offices. And then you leave and you go, well, at least we did, what we could. And then they're sitting there in their office going, what a bunch of, doofuses. They don't understand how much money I make from having this position, or how much power I have from having this position, or how much more important my perspective or my point of view is rather than the constituents. It's a very arrogant attitude, very elitist. But on the other side, we talked about a lot of folks in the leftist camp literally making excuses for why it's okay to take away people's rights. So the one I wrote in the newsletter was, well, if you support the right to bear arms, you must support mass shootings in schools then. I've heard that before. I get hit with that from time to time. And it's really weird how they will bring up the absolute worst case scenario of something that can happen with the right to bear arms. And then they try to paint you into a corner to the point where you have to say, well, no, I don't support mass shootings in schools, but, I guess I need to rethink, the right to bear arms, the right to self-defense. I guess I have to rethink that because it's my yearning for that right to protect my family, to protect my own life, that's causing shooters to go into schools with guns. So we're supposed to think that way, guys. That's how we're supposed to connect the dots when we get approached like that. And so at any rate, I'm kind of curious what some of you have heard in regards to this. If you guys have been, ever approached by people in this fashion, so we can, basically have a kind of a discussion about it. This is a type of psychology that's used by the left. So I don't know what else I could really say to someone who says if you support the right to bear arms, you support mass shootings in schools. You pretty much just have to laugh those people off. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can have a debate. And sometimes you can actually, for instance, I have been very vocal on social media for years. Take away the gun-free zones. I have been vocal about that in D.C. even. So that goes way back. Take away that stupid law, because that's where we got this, this huge amount of school shootings. Previous to the no gun zones, in schools and certain other places too, they just weren't that common. We had that really big one that everyone remembers, Columbine, and that's what we got out of Columbine. Was literally, So if you take away the the gun-free zones and you let teachers conceal carry, those who want to, basically a shooter has to try and figure out when they go into a school who has a gun. If they're worried about their own safety, they're going to have to try and figure out who's got a gun first, because they're going to get shot. And if that happens, basically the problem starts going away, because these people prefer to go to gun-free zones. 2 reasons. Number one, they're psychopaths and they enjoy killing and hurting other people. That's a psychopathic trait. Number 2, they want to inflict as much damage as humanly possible before they are stopped. A gun-free zone is a perfect place to do something like that. It's going to take a while for a cop to get there, or someone with a gun. It's going to take a little while. You're going to do a lot of damage in the meantime. So gun-free zones are the problem. It is not guns. It's gun-free zones and also the psychology behind it. I've had liberals approach me saying teachers don't want to carry. And by the way, we'll talk about SEPA in a little bit here too. But teachers, say, I don't want to carry a gun. Well, you don't have to. That's okay. If you're uncomfortable with a firearm, you shouldn't be carrying a firearm. But believe me, you come to the South, teachers will be lining up to conceal carry. It will happen. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth. That may not be true in the North, because I keep getting told in the North it doesn't work that way. Teachers don't want to carry guns. So I said, well, then hire security to have guns in the school then, because you guys aren't willing to do anything else. Obviously you need to come up with more money and more guns inside the school. But, that it's an archaic argument, basically the right to bear arms, the right to self-defense is God-given. It did not come from the government, therefore government cannot take it away. This is the beauty of the Declaration of Independence. All of our rights come from our Creator. This is big. This is important. And I'm not sure we've ever talked about it before, but the reason why the Founding Fathers put that in the document is so that government could not take your rights away. The only way government can take your rights away now at this point is if you agree to them. And that's it. So what are they going to offer you in return? How much are your God-given rights worth? Maybe $2,000? Maybe a big screen TV set in your living room is what your rights are worth. Perhaps a $1,200 check when they shut down everyone's work, won't let you travel anywhere. Is that worth giving up your rights? $1,200 check? A lot of Americans thought so. So I'd like to ask, basically for anyone out there, basically if they believe that their rights are worth something else tangible, please let me know what that is. What are our rights worth? How much, what are we willing to give up our God-given rights for in exchange for temporary comfort or temporary security? So what would that be? Would that be, basically martial law for a little while? We'd be willing to give up our rights, to have martial law. I suppose if the problem is big enough, we could. But at any rate, I digress. I mean, I'm opening it up right away right now, basically for conversation on this. Let's concentrate on this area a little bit before we move into SEPA, though. If you guys, you guys here in the chat with me, you guys ever had to deal with folks like that literally are saying, oh, yeah, it's worth giving up your rights, and they're okay with giving up not only their rights, but their kids' rights.
Usually.
Go ahead.
Usually I just end up disregarding them. There's certain times where you just can't talk to them anymore, and you just ignore them at that point.
Okay, gotcha.
I've had the conversation one time, and I told him that, no, I'm like you. I believe in gun rights for protecting myself, but I also believe in we need to do something with mental illness.
Yep. That is the truth, but that's a big, big discussion. In fact, that's something I would like to talk to Sam about. because I think that deserves like a 1 or a 2 hour show on Sam's broadcast at some point. At what point did mental
we
illness?
could do it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sam.
No, I said we'd go ahead and do it. The other one I was going to throw in there is this safety cult. I get so sick and tired of everybody when we leave places saying, "Be safe, be safe." Trish turns to him and says, "I'd rather be free."
Yep, that's right. That's right. Good answer.
But yeah, we could do that. We could do a show on that.
Yep. So the mental illness, and in fact, when we do this on your show, Sam, I'm going to get into I'm going to dig down that rabbit hole really hard and fast, because I believe it literally comes from, well, actually, let's not do it on this show. Let's do it on yours. I don't want to open the can of worms because I'm going to go on forever. But I think I know what's causing it. And it's everything from, pharmaceuticals to the education system. But I think it's literally trying to convince people God does not exist. I think that's a big part of it too. If there's no meaning anymore in people's lives, if there's you're here for a purpose. If that is taken from people, you're here by chance. You're totally, by chance. Basically, there's really nothing else out there. I mean, for me to think along those lines is really, really, really depressing. I think I would, if I believe that, I probably would be medicated, because I don't know how I would function under that. So for those who think that, basically believing in God, and this isn't a religious show, by the way, and it never has been, but there's a lot of religious people here. But the belief in God, the belief in Jesus Christ, is extremely important to many of us here. We put all of our stock into it, all of it, and we don't question it. We have faith in that regard, and that gives us purpose. And so I'm going to stop it right there, because, like I said, that'd be better on a longer show, and I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole with this, because, like I said, it would take an hour or two. But a good point, Sam. What do you think about the mental illness out there?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like during the Reagan administration, a lot of mental hospitals were closed down because people were abusing the system. For 3 hots and a cot, not going to jail, but going into, a comfortable hospital. So I think that was the main reason why it was shut down, because they had discovered, that over 30% of them actually didn't need it, and they were abusing the system. And it was pretty bad in California. But that's, of course, where the mental ill are for some reason.
Yeah, that's
They like hanging out in
Isn't that really-
California.
Oh, nice weather and everything else too over there, eh?
Mm.
And the government is pretty much run by them, so
Yep.
over there.
Yep.
So that's where this transgender stuff, I think, I would qualify those as people who back at that time would have been locked up.
Yeah. Yep. And here it is. I mean, actually, honest to God, a lot of mental illness is being placated by the left. And once again, this isn't pick on the left night. I'm just talking about some of the arguments I've had with leftists, because, I had one this week. And where, basically I was wearing my Missouri Freedom Initiative shirt and had Second Amendment on the back of it. And, of course, they had to mention how if I support the right to bear arms, then I support school shootings. So that's exactly what they said.
Wow.
Yep. So they said, it's people like you that make school shootings possible. So it's my fault, personally my fault, these school shootings. And so
This is
go ahead.
This is always their argument. Just because you like some nice things, just because you enjoy something, and just because you wish to retain your own level of defense, they will claim that you're the enemy.
Yep.
And that you're some kind of evil person.
Yeah. And it basically, go ahead. I'm sorry. Was someone going to speak? No? Okay. I concur with that 100%. The fact is, but they reach to that level. It's always the worst case scenario. So if basically you support school shooting, you support the killing of the murder of innocent kids, if you believe in the Second Amendment, if you believe in the right to bear arms, a God-given right God gave it to you by mistake, according to them, and you should give that right up because that's how you're going to save the kids. So that's the mentality behind a lot of folks in the left. And by the way, it really is that simple for them. It's that simple. And so they believe the perception, of course, is the reality. If everyone got rid of guns, then we wouldn't have, mass killings anymore. Well, England has shown us different, hasn't it? Does anyone know what's going on in England?
The knife phenomena.
Yeah, they say now that they
yeah.
don't have a gun problem anymore because they confiscated all the guns. They do have a serious problem with people stabbing each other in Britain. And also go ahead.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, I got a friend over there that's in the UK, and yeah, he was telling me a while back that there's some areas where you'll just get some guy that's been hacking people up with a machete.
Yep,
And then they'll just find a body somewhere.
that's right.
I mean,
And
it's
not
it's
only
absolutely
that,
insane.
Caleb, I'm sure you've heard about the buckets of acid that they throw in people's faces in
yeah,
England. That's
I've
another
heard about
popular
that.
one on the tube, right? So
That one's not as common,
No.
but particularly in the major cities and particularly in London. It's now you got to keep in mind. I'm the type of guy that likes some dark humor. I gotta enjoy it every now and again because we live in a messed up world. Gotta enjoy it. But it's become a running joke at this point how bad the stabbing problem is in London.
Yep.
Like there's memes everywhere about how just people just getting stabbed in London. I mean, it's common. You're never going to stop people from doing things they shouldn't be doing.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to stop that. Taking away the tool isn't going to help it.
This is
You gotta
mental
stop
disorder.
the-
This is a mental.
You've got to
Go ahead.
You've got to remove the dysfunction in society. And at this point, you have a combination. I could get into, the RFK's been talking about this a lot. I could get into the whole thing about how the food supply, changing hormones. You can get into the water supply. I mean, you realize that the amount of pharmaceuticals that have been found in the water supply in California,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
it's insane.
Yep.
And people think this doesn't affect people's brains.
Yep. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? There is so much conditioning going on and placating mental illness. Men can get pregnant, men can become women, women can become men, and it's normalized. And then you're a freak if you don't believe it, even though it's not true. And you're a homophobe, you're a transphobe, you're, whatever. So they always have a word for you if you don't believe what they believe in their mental illness, right? So at any rate,
And I'm going to throw in there too. I'm going to add to this when it comes to the whole trans thing and all the quote unquote gender dysphoria thing.
Mhm.
The amount of hormone altering, whether it be drugs that have gotten into the water supply or what's in the food, but there's so many things applied to the crops that will also cause hormonal changes.
Mhm.
And there's a certain level of all of this that there is some reality to the fact that people are being born in such a way they produce less of certain hormones. They produce less testosterone, or they have an imbalance, or polycystic ovarian disease. And I wouldn't put it past it to say that some of this stuff being exposed, pregnant women being exposed to a lot of this stuff results in certain malformations in the development of the organs that produce the hormones.
Okay.
Which in turn will alter as someone develops, into an adult, alter how their body changes. And it's a problem.
Yep. Well, and so going back to what I was talking about, England says America has a gun problem. And they thought they were the authority because they got rid of guns in England, and that was a 100-year-long process, and they did get rid of virtually all the private-owned guns. You can still own a gun, but there's very strict guidelines to go by, and you can't keep them in your house. And so that's another really weird part of that. So what they have now is people are stabbing each other. and it's an epidemic. It's a huge problem in England. And so they are basically trying to take away the knives. In fact, I know for a fact right now in England, it is against the law to have more than a 1-inch blade on your person if you're out in public. So you can have longer knives at home that you need for cooking and baking and all that fun stuff, but you can't take them out on the street. Actually, that will land you in jail. So you can only have on your person a 1-inch knife, and that's it. And they're thinking about taking those away now too, because but the thing is the people that are stabbing other people aren't doing it with 1-inch knives. They're going out with 3-4-inch switchblades. They're breaking the law. You see, they said everyone follows the law when it comes to getting rid of guns. But like I said, it was a 100-year process in England, maybe about 120 years total, from when they started doing restrictions on guns till ultimately it just became impossible to own a gun. And that came in the late 1980s, early 1990s, is when England finally finished up the process and, just kind of zipped it up. But now folks get knives and stab each other. And if they can't get knives, they'll get a bucket full of acid, which is relatively easy to make, and then just throw it in someone's face. The problem is men's hearts, women's hearts. That's the problem. Now, interestingly enough, I'm going to, we don't have any comments on Twitter. Again, I want to thank all of you for watching on Twitter, by the way. And if you have any questions, comments, or whatever, just throw them in, bottom of the video there, and I'll be watching for that. But let's see. Ozark's Freedom Gal had something very interesting I want to read. Ozark Freedom's Gal says something about, at one point I was working with around 35 women and realized I was one of less than 10 who weren't on psych meds. We're over-medicated. This is out of control here. Over-medicated like crazy. And a lot of people are going on psych meds because of depression. That's what I want to cover on Sam's show. I have a theory about that. But the fact of the matter is we are over-prescribing medications like crazy. These are psych meds. So we're talking about things that can affect the way you think. The way you think is affected by a medication. I am not a fan of medication that can affect the way you think at all. That is not a good thing. So I'm not a fan of folks drinking alcohol either. Now, I'm not opposed to it. It's not like I go around, I'm an anti-alcohol guy, but I myself choose not to drink. That's my personal choice. I don't like to lose control. And so I want to be in total control because I'm responsible for everything I do, whether I'm in my right mind or not. I'd like to be able to blame something else if I do something stupid. I often blame the dogs if I do something stupid at home. But my wife doesn't buy it. She thinks it was me that screwed up, and she's almost always right. So, but Ozark Freedom Gal says it's not a knife or a gun problem. It's a heart sin problem. Agreed. Thankfully, we have a guidebook that provides the remedy. We do indeed. But some people have, a lot of pride in that arena. I mean, it's really weird. And 25, 30 years ago, and once again, I'm dating myself. I'm an older guy anyway, but 25, 30 years ago, I knew a lot of Democrats that were Christian. They believed in God. They believed in the Bible. They believed in the right to bear arms. What happened to the Blue Dogs? Where did they go? Were they forced out? I mean, did the group mass consciousness of the Democrat Party change somehow? Why can't they believe in God anymore? Why is that a weakness if you're in their party? Why is that frowned upon? It's just wild because they're smarter than us because of science, because they can say, well, God doesn't exist. I mean, they keep, evolution. Evolution is what happened here. There is no God. There's no proof of that either. You have to have faith to believe in evolution, gang. So if that's their excuse, they have their religion, and it's government. That's it, government. Go ahead.
We all know the old classical liberal Democrat Party died with Kennedy.
Yeah, and Kennedy was kind of breaking out at that time too. I mean, he was showing the Democrats a new way. You know, he was talking about cutting taxes, getting rid of the Federal Reserve, having the U.S. Treasury mint our currency again. He was showing the Democrats a better way. And then on top of which, he lived long enough for, basically cutting taxes, basically to spur growth in the United States, and more taxes were coming in. So actually it actually worked. But I don't know that anyone has ever done that except for Reagan. But Reagan, I don't think he really cut government. He cut certain aspects of government, but he beefed up the military. So it was kind of a wash, and Sam will probably remember that better than I can, but as I was just a wee lad at the time. But I do believe he cut everything except for defense. And this would be in 1985, maybe. It was a very bold move he made. Everything got cut except for defense. And then, of course, defense, they were working on what we thought at the time was Star Wars. 1984 maybe is when he said that. And so Star Wars didn't exist. And so the strange thing about that is, of course, everyone believed it, including our enemies. And that's part of how, basically, we were able to conquer, the Russian Empire. They thought we had space weapons that we didn't even have. So, because we kept showing all these great graphics on TV of how it works and everything, I guess that was proof enough for the Russians.
That's just a general rule of thumb when it comes to dealing with, foreign powers, is if it pops up in the newspaper, they either have something that's less or something that's way more powerful than what they're saying.
Yep. Yep. So Warrior Class says the Founding Fathers were less worried about legal repercussions than they were about freedoms and their posterity. So I would say that's true. And actually that's something that's important too. And when we're working on legislation, you have to try and figure out if there's fallout coming from that legislation, try and anticipate it, try to mitigate it, by making that's part of what they call the perfection process up at the Missouri Capitol. And so, but that's something they generally don't care about in these corporatist bills. So that's disturbing to me. Basically, the Founding Fathers were very, very worried about actually the legal repercussions of legislation that they were going through. That's why they debated what became our Constitution for so long. And the Bill of Rights. I mean, this wasn't done overnight, gang. This was a 10-year process. So they went through that with a fine-tooth comb. And there's lots of interesting stories if you read your history on the arguments between Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson. They got in some good arguments, but they also really worked well together. Benjamin Franklin actually was the one who had Thomas Jefferson freeing the slaves out of the Declaration of Independence. And a lot of people don't know the history on that. Thomas Jefferson wanted to free the slaves. He actually wanted to go ahead.
That was supposed to be the 28th complaint, and he also wrote the original draft of the 13th Amendment.
Yep, that's right.
People talk about him owning slaves, but the reality, if you look back, he owned slaves on paper, but he paid the head of household more than he paid annually.
Yep.
More than he paid the carpenter that built the Monticello in 4 years.
That's right. He paid them well. He fed them well. He gave them nice housing. But it was really more on paper. It was really more indentured servitude. And they were paid well, and they didn't want to leave. Even when Thomas Jefferson died, they didn't want to leave the property. So that's a funny story in itself. But we digress. Basically, the whole idea here is for us to understand the illogical arguments people will give forth to what conservatives say are their God-given rights. They'll say there's reasons why you can't have those. The right, okay, let's start with the First Amendment, the right to free speech, the right to worship as you please, the freedom of the press. That's all right there in the First Amendment. But apparently that can hurt people, according to the Democrats, because of disinformation. It hurts people. So therefore you must contain disinformation. Well, if you're going to do that, who is deciding what is disinformation? Of course, that's the Democrats. And anything that's offensive to them is suddenly something they consider to be disinformation. And so you go down that rabbit hole really quick. You go totalitarian. By the way, that's another thing that's very important to understand. Every single communist or communist-like government in the world all curtailed free speech. All of them, without exception. You cannot have free speech in communism. It doesn't work because the people get riled up and go after the government. You can't assemble and talk about how crappy your government is in a communist nation. You can't assemble and talk about it because, once again, then you're going to get people riled up and they're going to go after the government. Speech is censored, and they encourage each other to rat each other out when they say something that is against the government in communist and totalitarian societies. That way those people can be killed, and so we can make an example of them. This is what the Democrats actually say is the extreme case scenario. They're just trying to stop disinformation. Well, that's exactly how Hitler started it, too. He wanted to stop disinformation, too. He had a good case for it. Says a lot of people saying horrible things about him, and we're getting a little worried about him and his very, very fast accumulation of power after the Reichstag burned down. So, yeah, he started to curtail free speech. And a lot of people thought that was a good idea because Hitler's our man. He's a good guy, and people are, trying to hurt him, through the press and, basically through foreign journalism, foreign papers. So the free speech went out the window pretty quick. And then when they started rounding up people to take them away in train cars, people were not allowed to speak about that openly except in the positive. So that's one thing that I worry about. Elon Musk said a little while ago. He says we need a lot more positive speech on Twitter, and that will raise the algorithm for you. If you put out positive posts, you'll get more circulation on your posts. So it's all around us, gang. So we need to be mindful of this and understand also that not everyone that we think is on our side is on our side. There's a bigger game being played here. Am I saying the Trump administration is terrible, it's corrupt? I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we need to watch everything very carefully. Authoritarian acts were demonstrated in the last 4 years, says Protein Dude. And so we saw that. Authoritarian acts through the Biden administration, executive orders and more, stuff done by Congress even. Thank God for the Supreme Court during the Biden administration. Because if we didn't have them doing something right, we would have lost all three branches of government, and then basically you can entertain your worst fears of why the Second Amendment was put in place in the Bill of Rights. So thank God for the Supreme Court being there. So the left is not liking the right. We all understand this. There's a lot of division. But you guys need to hone your arguments when people want to literally come and insult you and say that you support the slaughter of school children because you're for the Second Amendment. You got to come up with an argument with them to show them how stupid they are. If they want to come up and say, basically, oh, by the way, that's another thing. I'm pro-life, and everyone knows that about me. But I get hit up once in a while saying, oh, yeah, but you support murdering people in prison. And I said, what are you talking about? Death penalty. No, I'm against the death penalty. Well, you can't be because you're pro-life. What are you talking about? I don't understand. I'm pro-life, period, all the way, beginning to end. I don't think it's right to kill someone in prison. So I'm against that as well. That's how pro-life I am. So at any rate, people try to put you in a box. They try and label you. They try to do it to me all the time. But so just be wary, basically of these people when they approach you. Just understand they're trying to catch you up. Pardon me. So Hitler's war against the banksters. Perhaps we're on the wrong side, says Warrior Class. Warrior Class, we've actually explored that quite a bit in the Truth, Money, and Freedom Days. Sorry, I get to get some water. Hang on a second. Okay, sorry for the awkward silence there. Hitler's war was against the bankers in part. And his book Mein Kampf, and that's where I'm getting my information from. In the book Mein Kampf, he was blaming basically the Jewish people for basically being the banksters, for owning the banks. And that is certainly true. That's true in today's day and age as well. And the banksters are definitely interested. Their only business is to take your money. Pardon me. So, at any rate, is that a reason to go and kill them? I don't think that's a reason to go and kill them. And we can have another talk about that later. I know people have very strong feelings, basically on what Hitler was doing one way or the other. But killing people in cold blood is wrong no matter what. No matter what. And that's essentially what Hitler's regime was doing, not just to Jews, but to others as well. And so there's absolutely no way I can condone that ever, and under any circumstances. And it doesn't matter what religion or what race or whatever, but killing people in cold blood is wrong. So, but being on the wrong side, basically, I don't know exactly what that means because I equate it with cold blood murder. So I think we were on the right side. That was not a good thing that Hitler did. So he tried to unify Europe under a single banner, and then the battle cry was basically what it was, And also, it's very important for people to understand that he wasn't fascist; he was socialist. So the fact that the mainstream media keeps talking about Warrior Class says that's not to say that I agree with everything Hitler did or said. Okay, understood. But I think, looking through the lens of history, people like to assign fascism to Hitler. And the weird part is, if you just go back 30 years ago, people weren't assigning necessarily fascism with Hitler back then. It was Mussolini. And Mussolini admitted he was a fascist. He was a corporatist, actually. So Hitler was a socialist. That's exactly what the Democrat Party is, socialist. They like the socialist idealism, and basically the work. And it was the German Worker Party, by the way, was the name of the party that Hitler was in charge of, by the way. German Worker Socialist Party.
No, direct translation would be National Socialist German Worker Party, and it's something Deutsche Socialist. I can't remember the exact thing. But it's a really long run together word.
Yep. So at any rate, that's what Hitler was. So keep that in mind too, as people talk to you about, because they want to compare Trump to Hitler, right? And so they want to say that Trump is a fascist, just like Hitler was a fascist. Hitler was not fascist. He was actually much closer to communism than a fascist. He was a socialist. He took over whatever he needed for his war machine. Basically, he wasn't working in tandem with businesses. He took over businesses. His administration literally took them over and told them what they'd be making in their factories. And that's what happened in real life. So that's part of the Socialist Workers of Germany party. So they were okay with that. So, but at any rate, who was fascist was Mussolini. And fascism, by the way, the meaning has changed over time. If you go previous to 1970, fascism meant businesses and governments joined together in an unholy union against the will and the benefit of the people. That was the original meaning of fascism. But now they've changed it. If you look at the Webster Dictionary now, it says it's totalitarianism. So fascism and totalitarianism are the same thing now, according to the dictionary. So they're accusing, I guess, Trump of being a totalitarianist or something of that nature. But the fact is, Hitler was socialist. Period. He was a socialist. Some might say he was leaning into communism a little bit with some of his ideology, and I can't disagree with that, but he wasn't a full-out communist either. He was a socialist. That's what the Democrats like. Those are the values the Democrats like, is socialism, socialism, socialism. They are the party of Hitler. They are. And in secret, clandestine, cloak and dagger. Can't let anyone know that, that we actually like socialism.
And throw in their disarmament and everything else too. That's always the fun part. Oh, by the way, you realize that the Socialist Party that's currently in Germany that claims to be left wing is they basically decided to disarm the entire other party.
Yeah.
And then decided to bar them from parliament.
Yep. And welcome to Charles, by the way.
That's called protecting our democracy, Caleb.
Yeah, but here's the problem, Charles. We don't have a democracy. We never have.
I know.
I know.
I just
so
love how they say that.
the word
It's-
democracy is thrown around a bit much.
Yeah. Ugh.
Well,
Anyway.
the Bolsheviks used to say that their socialist is liberty and freedom. When they were, overthrowing their Czar government. I mean, every totalitarian that's ever been formed in human history has always thrown the idea of freedom and rights and prosperity and all the other
And-
things that our founding fathers said whenever they became tyrannical.
Yeah.
You know, the funny part about it is every last one of those, they formed out of a power vacuum with no structure.
Yeah, Germany, Soviet Union, all had the exact same.
China.
China was their civil war in Japan.
China.
Soviet Union was World War I, and then the power vacuum left over from us ruining the German government post World War I formed the Nazis. All power vacuums.
Yep.
And usually it's desperate people with no common sense
Mm-hmm.
fleeing to the first solution.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
it's a
that
lot
or-
of people. It's the whole idea of, and Freedom Gal said that it's a safety net. That they really truly believe that there should be a very, very strong social safety net, and so that requires a lot of tax money. But unfortunately, people start taking advantage of it and then becoming dependent on it. And so,
Which-
go ahead.
I'm gonna say, everybody out there that listens to this and to understand that the human nature surrounding that it's a coexistence with government really should, and particularly when it comes to pulling into a situation if there was no government and what the people would do with that, to understand other parts of world history in that, either read it or go pull the audiobook off of YouTube or whatever of Thomas Paine Common Sense.
That's an excellent book. Good recommendation, Caleb. Yep, I like that. So that's, for this day and age, and Charles, thank you for joining us, by the way. We're going to be closing it up here in just a few minutes, but
I
because
know,
we're
I'm
only
late.
making it a 1 hour show. But it is interesting how far we have fallen in my lifetime at 53 years old. How far the United States has fallen, how many freedoms we've lost in my lifetime. And so freedoms my kids will never know. My grandkids will never know. And how people are so easy, on, the idea of giving up freedoms, even though it will affect those who come after them, their progeny. Generations later will never know that freedom once it's gone.
And when they don't know it, they'll never complain about how they never had it. I hear this all the time with, Second Amendment supporters.
Yep.
Oh, they come and take my semi-automatic AR-15. We're gonna do this, and I'm like, why ain't you fighting for the right to have NFA items?
Yep.
Why ain't you so outraged over the fact that what the founding fathers intended is not what you already have? And they're dumbfounded. They don't understand it.
Yep.
Because
well, silencers, it's a noise suppressor. But noise suppressors are they're only used for killing people. No.
They're not silent. They're not silent.
You see, that's the thing. Like, people do not know what they never had.
That's right.
Like you have to really, and I mean really, do some specific stuff to be able to make one completely silent.
Yeah.
They're not silent.
No.
Well, knives are suppressors by that case, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, but the UK. Go
Except
turn your
the
knife in the
screaming
bin.
noise people make when those knives seem to, get. Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah. Never mind. They're not as. Oh God, the dark humor's coming out.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one ever puts a pillow over their face. Not once. Hey, we should make pillows illegal.
Oh yeah. Hey, there you go. Knife suppressors, pillows.
Yep.
Oh God.
Yep.
Oh God. I'm sorry. This is getting dark.
It's
sorry. But that's just the thing about it all. Like, people will never stand up when they lose a right. 2 generations down the line, they become normalized with their And I think that's one of the issues. Like when I talk with people on Twitter, from England, they talk about these rights and freedoms, and then I compare mine to theirs, and they think we're too much. We're too much freedom. We're extreme because we do not see our rights the same way that they do. Theirs is, well, if I can go to work, I have freedom, and that's the level of indoctrination we have on generations that never experienced what it was like to lose something.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you lose something, your children will never know what it was like, and they'll never have the voice that you had. They'll never know about the times that were good, the freedom of the economy, the freedom of their rights and natural born rights, and it's gone forever. It'll take until it's so bad that people finally start questioning the legitimacy of what they're being, and people like the founding fathers did. They questioned in the Declaration of Independence the rights of God. What are the meaning that God gave for every human? And only until it gets so bad that people finally question society is only whenever there's going to be an enlightenment change in America. Unfortunately, that's how I believe it's going to go.
Yep.
Well, we got a lot of people waking up right now, and there's the one thing you kind of hope for, and that's that people wake up now and start learning something, because when you go too far along, you end up with a situation where you end up with a power vacuum, and then you end up with something more authoritarian.
Yep. That's
and
true.
It's disgusting.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, gang, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to close it off here. I want to kind of end it here at the 1 hour mark. I want to let folks know this was not our average live stream. We kind of let our hair down and talked about things we talk about before or after the live stream starts. So that's the kind of live stream you had this time. We will not have a live stream next Saturday. I will be out of town, so it'll be 2 weeks before we have another live stream, but the next one in 2 weeks will be loaded for bear, because basically we'll be right back on legislation again, making phone calls as people have requested. I will be calling up people on the phone. It'll be voicemails, of course, to legislators, so they can hear how I'm asking for co-sponsors. And we can get many other things done. Plus, also, we should have a lot more information on what's going on with SEPA in the next 2 weeks. A lot more information. So right now, we're kind of lacking on that just a little bit, but I'd hope to have more before tonight. But also, too, we should have a committee assignment for HB 433, I think, by then. So we should be in committee in 2 weeks in the House, and that's when we got to move quickly. So we're stalled in the Senate right now. So thank you very much to Senator Sandy, what's her name?
Crawford?
Crawford. Yeah, Sandy Crawford. Thank you for shutting down a silver and gold bill, which you voted for twice, 2023 and 2024. You had no problem with that bill in the Senate until it ended up in your committee. And now you're stalling the bill because you have concerns whether or not the bill that you voted yes on previous years is constitutional, and you apparently have two attorneys looking at the bill right now. So God bless you. God bless you
still,
for checking to make sure. And by the way, Sandy, when that's done, I would like you to make an announcement in the Capitol that the Missouri Constitutional Money Act is indeed constitutional, and no one else needs to stall the bill and ask for attorney help. And if anyone here has the time, effort, or even the will to do so, please send Sandy a copy of the U.S. Constitution, one of those handbooks. It'd be real nice if she can get delivered about 100 of those in the mail, because she clearly doesn't know the Constitution of the United States if she believes that the Missouri Constitutional Act may be she didn't say it was, she said it may be unconstitutional. She didn't.
That makes sense.
She didn't specify. So, all right. So that's good.
I like the Second Amendment.
Hey, Cindy, how about this? Can you fax her a copy of Article 1, Section 10 of the Missouri
Yeah,
Constitution?
there you go.
U.S. Constitution. U.S. Constitution.
Yes, I
mean,
can.
There we go.
I can run the printer at work and print her like 1,000 copies and send her like a huge
Yeah,
box.
there you go. Yeah. So yeah, that's the silliness we're dealing with. By the way, we don't hide our warts in Missouri with the Missouri Freedom Initiative. When we have a wart, we expose it, and our wart right now is Sandy in the Senate.
Next time we do a smash and grab, we should shove a whole bunch of them underneath her door.
Yep. The smash and grab. Do you mean a knock and shock?
Okay, sorry. I was thinking of something totally different. My
Yeah,
bad.
apparently. Yeah,
I
we don't
don't
want to. Yeah, politicians don't like hearing that.
Might go back. Smash and grab the Capitol might
Administration
go really
is
bad.
over. We're not smashing and grabbing nothing.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sure the state highway patrol wrote that one down.
It's entirely possible. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, gang, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I want to thank you all for joining tonight. Once again, this was not your average live stream. This was us letting our hair down. Basically, we're in limbo right now with our bills, and we need to keep working on them. We need to keep getting co-sponsors. And by the way, that's what I'm doing. Even though I'm going out of town on Wednesday, I will be making phone calls this week. I'm going to pick 20 people in the house, and I'm going to call them directly and ask them to co-sponsor. So that's my goal for the end of the week, is to make 20 phone calls. My rep is already sponsored, so I need to work on some other reps there that I know would sponsor if they were just asked to do so. That's all they need, is someone to ask them. And okay, so once again, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you for putting up with our shenanigans with a non-standard live stream. But come back in 2 weeks and we'll be loaded for bear on legislation. We'll be talking about SEPA heavily in 2 weeks, by the way. We'll have a lot to say in 2 weeks about SEPA. And also we'll be giving you big updates on gold and silver bills, not only in Missouri, but hopefully also in Florida, because it looks like they're rocking and rolling down there. Okay, again, and another thing, I will be doing a video with Lynette Zhang and Daniel Diaz later on this week. So at any rate, that'll be out. I don't know if I'll be able to send an email to let you guys know about it, but I think it'll be on Lynette Zhang's channel. So you guys can watch for that. She's really big silver and gold gal, by the way. So if you guys haven't heard of her before. Okay, all right, that's it for now. Thank you again for joining us, because you could have spent the last hour doing just about anything. And if you were hanging out with us while we were, letting our hair down, having a good time, and just kind of talking about the kind of stuff we talk about before and after the show, thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending that time with us. I hope we gave you a little bit of perspective on things we deal with as grassroots folks. But thank you again. May God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for joining on the panel, to Cindy, to Liberty Revolutionary, to Shane, and also to Charles, our good friend, the Masked Missourian. Charles is how he goes by. So he's Masked Missourian. So, all right. Thank you again, gang. God bless you all, and take care.